Hey everyone, Jeremy Knopf with Spartan Media here, and you're about to see a webinar that we ran this morning on how to adapt your marketing to the current COVID-19 crisis that we're all facing. You guys have probably seen a lot of the businesses who are either struggling or completely shut down because of how this has impacted their business. It doesn't have to be that way though, right? There's a lot of things we can do differently, different strategies, different tactics we can use to continue to market despite what's going on and still either stay afloat or ideally thrive even in spite of what we're facing. So I want to say we did run into some technical issues getting the webinar up and running. We missed the first, I don't know how many minutes of the webinar, but with what's there, there's still a tremendous amount of valuable information that was shared. A lot of people had great questions as well. So between the information that was shared and the questions and then the answers to those questions, I'm hoping that gives you guys a lot of insight as to how to adapt your marketing to continue to grow, continue to thrive in this challenging economic time. I also want to say that I'm going to be doing more webinars like this in the future. So if you have specific questions or you're unsure about how to handle certain things, feel free to reach out to me on social media. You can catch me on Facebook, LinkedIn. Those are probably going to be the best places to reach me. But if you have specific questions or you're looking for answers on specific issues that you're trying to solve, reach out, let me know, and I'll either answer it right there in the comments or in one of the webinars or in an upcoming video. But what I want to do is help as many people as possible. Even if you're not a client, if I can help in some way, I mean, ultimately, the stronger we all are, the stronger that we all can become, right? Like this is all a team effort here. So hope you guys enjoy the webinar. If you haven't already, I encourage you to subscribe to the YouTube channel. Check us out on Facebook, LinkedIn, etc. And so here's the webinar. Thanks.
All right. Okay, so we are now recording again. All right. So let's throw this out real quick. If anybody has any questions on building that relationship with your customers, does anybody have any questions on this so far? No. All right. So we're going to leverage social media because we've got people online more now than ever before. You know, we talked a little bit about the stats earlier. Facebook was up about 70%. So there's a right approach and a wrong approach to the kind of content that we're creating. All right, so we don't want to see this, you know, COVID sale, 50% off, things like that, you know, where you're just trying to capitalize on whatever the topic is and turn that into a way to pitch your product, right, or your service. People are going to see through that. It's going to be perceived as sleazy, and rightfully so. And you're going to turn people off rather than actually bringing anybody into your brand. We don't want to use fear tactics. I mentioned the life insurance agent example before, and that's a terrible example. You know, this person said, hey, if you're afraid of catching COVID, give me a call about life insurance. That's the kind of things we don't want to see. What we do want to see is useful content. This is the kind of content that they can use whether or not they buy from you or not. So this could be, it could be like a how-to or a tutorial type of content where you're showing them how to do a particular thing. What you want to do is leverage some of the things that are going on into some of these aspects of content. So, for example, let's say, let me get one of you guys to use as an example. Who's having trouble coming up with content and wants to be a guinea pig here?
You can use me anytime you want.
All right. Your business is probably going to be a lot different than most people, especially because of who you cater to. The veteran community tends to have a darker view on things, so you can get away with a lot of things that other people couldn't. You could certainly create shirts that take a comical approach to this, even though it's a dark topic. That's, veteran humor. And what you could actually do is you could run a series of potential shirts and get people commenting on it. Or in your case, you could do a thread on social media where you're talking about, drop your funniest COVID memes, right? So people start doing that. That can generate ideas for you from a perspective of shirt ideas, but also gets people talking. It gets people engaging. and kind of like makes light of a bad situation. So that's one approach. Hey, Cheryl.
Hi.
Adam, let's use you as an example for a minute. So I know you've been dropping a ton of great content on LinkedIn particularly, and that's actually a perfect example of the kind of content that people should be doing. But you've been talking about, financial aspects of this. You want to give an example of one of your recent posts? Do you have one handy by any chance?
Yes. I've got all sorts of stuff. So obviously the biggest thing right now people are talking about is money. So it's, where is my business going to get money? Where is my, where are my employees going to get money? So with these new SBA, what they're calling payroll protection loans that are going to be coming out, if you're a small business owner and you've been paying payroll over the last year and a half, 12 months or so, you can apply. They'll take the average of those 12 months, multiply it by 2.5, as long as you use that over the 8 weeks after the loan is funded for payroll, for mortgage or rent, utilities, basically those overall operating costs of your business, and you meet some certain other requirements, they're going to forgive that loan and it'll basically become a grant instead of a loan. So that's,
right.
One of the big pieces of the new legislation. But to do all of that, you have to apply. So you have to have your most recent tax return. You have to have your year-to-date profit and loss done. You have to do a personal financial statement for each of the owners of the business. You have to fill out like 3 or 4 other application forms through the SBA. And I just did it myself last week just to see how long it would take. And since I'm a financial person, I know I'm going to do it a lot quicker than the normal business owner. But it still took me 3 to 4 hours to do all of that stuff and get it all completed to be able to actually submit it to the SBA. And, so that's like as quick as humanly possible, compiling all that information to be able to submit it. And then, they still don't know about the timelines. There's some people saying, oh, we're going to have a 24-hour turnaround. Others are, the normal SBA program takes, 6 to 8 weeks to get funded. So there's still some of those pieces that are coming out from both the administration as well as kind of the banks and lenders that are doing the loans. So that's a huge piece right now for small business owners.
Awesome. And that's a great example because what you've been doing is taking a topic that your customers, your potential clients need, right? It's not something that's necessarily directly related to what you do, but you're sharing useful information on that. That's something they can use even if they don't hire you as a consultant or use your services in any way, but you're taking a complex topic that's especially timely right now and you're distilling it for the average person, somebody who doesn't have the background. And that's the case with all of us. Like we've all got this deep knowledge in whatever it is that we do, and we can use that to help people to get through this situation while building our own brand. So some other examples that we can look at, and if you guys want to jump into some of these, we can run through some of you and create examples out of some of the stuff that you're trying to come up with if you guys are having problems with coming up with content. But here's another example. So we've got a client that's an IT company. So some of the topics that are great for them are, we've got right now, everybody is doing remote work. And for most people, this is a brand new thing. Nobody knows, all the little tips and tricks, how to get things to work right. You've got everybody on Zoom calls and they don't really know, how to make that smooth and efficient. So for this IT company, they're creating content on, the technology side of it. If you're more of a, maybe a human resources type of person, you could take that same topic and create content about the mindset of working from home, right? Like there's things we have to think about when we're working from home, like actually get up and get out of your pajamas for a change. Put on regular clothes so that you're creating a different environment. Things like that. So anything tied to remote work right now is a great way. So if there's a way that you can connect your business to remote work, that's a great way to tie into what people are dealing with right now. Some kind of side hustle or multiple streams of income. Right now, people who have courses or coaching programs or online training or things like that, they're absolutely crushing it because people are home, they've got this time, they're on social media, and there's a lot of opportunities there. So they can start taking these courses and learn things. And of course, because of the financial aspects, everybody wants to figure out how they can make more money. So that's another approach.
Hey,
Pivoting.
Jeremy,
Yes,
I'm sorry, can I interrupt you for a moment, please?
absolutely. Yep.
Since you brought up specifically courses, that's actually
Yep.
what I'm working on right now.
Okay.
I'm in the middle of building a course. Excuse me. It's beginner SEO, basically on-page optimization, specifically for writers and editors.
Mhm.
And so a lot of them already work at home,
Yes.
and that's part of what I have been writing in my content so far. Is this will enable you to make more money. You already know the editing and the writing side of it. Now add the SEO side, and then you're doubly valuable.
Love it.
But yay, good. But I have been nervous lately that I don't want to sound as though I'm taking advantage. I don't want to sound like, hey, everybody's working from home, now. So this is, I don't know.
Right.
I'm a little bit nervous about it. And
Okay. And that's totally normal. Like everybody's going to have that perception. I mean, we all remember probably the first time we got on social media and said something. We probably felt a little nervous about how somebody was going to perceive us. Now, social media is widespread. Everybody uses it. So that's gone. But then when we use it to try and promote our business or ourselves, a lot of people get a little antsy about it. So it's a totally normal feeling, especially in a time like this. That being said, the approach you want to take is within this course, you've got particular information that's very valuable and useful. You can take a small nugget of that information and pull that out and use that as the basis for a piece of content. So you talk a little bit about remote work within the context of this course, you said, right? Can you give me an example of something that you're covering within there, like one little tiny nugget?
in the course itself,
Yeah.
keyword research.
Okay, but as it pertains to remote work, though.
Oh, I'm sorry. And actually, that's not in the course itself. I don't have anything about remote working in the course. It's in my promotional materials. It's it will enable you to make more money, to apply for more jobs. And actually, I haven't mentioned remote working specifically because, like I said, a lot of the writers and editors that I'm targeting already do work at home.
Okay.
They're already freelancers. They're already doing that. So I haven't mentioned that specifically. Is that something
Gotcha.
maybe I should?
Possibly, but here's the obvious angle that I see. So you've got these people, writers and editors, who are already working remotely. They're already great at what they do. And now you've got this whole swath of people coming into the market and working remotely. And on top of that, you've probably got some people who are losing their jobs. So now you've got more people coming into the market, more competition. So
Right.
a good approach here would be you position this from the perspective of value added, right? So a writer or editor who is just a writer or editor is one thing. A writer or editor who has a background in at least on-page SEO is infinitely more valuable to a publication than just a regular writer. And I know, Cheryl, you've commented on this before. I know you train your people on that kind of thing as well. So if you can position it from the perspective of making that particular person stronger from a job security standpoint, that's how you then tie your course to what's currently going on. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, it absolutely does. And I do have some content in there in the course about the writing itself. It's not a writing course. It's not here's how to write content, because it assumes that most people already do know that. This is just adding the SEO component. But I could expand a little bit on the writing portion to get those people who, or to help those people who, like you said, do already have the on-page experience, but maybe could turn some of that into something else. So, and I had not even thought about that.
Right. Now, there's another angle you could take it with this as well. So that's approaching the writers, but let's also look at the publishers, right? When you're selling this course to writers, you're selling that one at a time. You could turn around and sell this to publishers. You offer a whatever a reasonable discount might be. I don't know what your price point looks like, but you offer the publishers a reasonable discount in exchange for buying it in volume, and then they can actually train all of their people. Because right now, from a publisher's perspective, online traffic is up. competition's heavy, but traffic is up. So if they can train out all of their employees to start using, you know, the fundamentals of on-page SEO and start increasing their organic traffic, then they can start getting more eyeballs, which leads to higher ad revenue, more people signing up for newsletters, etc. So approach it on both sides of the market, the individual writers as well as the publishers.
That is fantastic. And again, I had not even thought about that. I've been kind of a little bit paralyzed because I've been afraid that like I said, I didn't want to seem like I was taking advantage of anything, and I just had not even, my brain had not even gone there. So thank you so much.
You're
That's
very
phenomenal.
welcome. A good way to get over that fear, which a lot of people have when it comes to selling something, is don't think about it as, hey, I'm here selling this thing. Think about it as I am providing, because you know what value your course brings, or for everybody else, you know what value your product or your service brings to people. So you know that if they take this course and they apply the principles outlined in this, then they're generally going to get more traffic, right? So we already know that the value is there. They're going to receive the benefits if they take the course and they do what they need to do. So look at it as you're not taking advantage of an opportunity, you're giving them an opportunity to improve their situation. And that's especially important right now when so many businesses are struggling. So it's just a simple matter of reframing how you're looking at that.
Quick question.
Exactly. Yeah. Thank you.
Michelle, are you doing any kind of a teaser on that, or is this just straight up offering the course in its entirety? Or are you offering any sort of a teaser that reduced or zero cost?
I am. There's going to be a beginning portion of the course that is available for free. That's available to anyone before they actually register and pay. I have a little bit in there already. I haven't decided everything that's going to go in there. But yes, that is part of what I'm doing.
One thing I would suggest then is, although it may require some rework once we get this COVID business behind us, you might approach it from the standpoint of, with so many new people joining the work at home force, a lot of folks are not used to certain aspects. So we're offering this course for you to help you.
I'm sorry, Doc. I'm having a hard time.
Goodbye.
Somebody.
We've got somebody
on the phone.
Yeah.
And I can't
see.
You can mute him, Jeremy.
Which one is it? I couldn't tell.
I think it's Jason.
It's Jason.
Sekel? There we
He's
go.
muted.
Okay.
There you go.
He is now. He wasn't a second
Okay.
ago.
All right.
I'm sorry. Go ahead, Doc.
Anyway, you can offer it as this is a freebie because we understand a whole lot of you folks are just joining the work at home force while you're waiting for things to stabilize again. Here's some things that may be helpful to you. And then you go into your free course and don't avoid any kind of an upsell. You can mention the fact that you have more detailed courses. I think if you can avoid any sort of an upsell hint, you're not going to alienate as many people because, like you say, people right now are leery of folks taking advantage of COVID. So if you can keep yourself as distant from that possible thought as possible, you're better off. But explain to them that this is something we're doing because we understand a lot of people have not done this before, and there's some things you might want to think about.
That's a great point,
awesome.
Doc, and that
Thank
kind
you
of
so much, Doc.
Thanks, Doc. So that actually touches on something we're going to cover a little bit, and that's leveraging what we're doing to kind of create a force multiplier. For those of you who don't have a military background, basically that means you're using a tool to, rather than just doing the direct work that tool does, it's doing the work of several other. So we'll get a little bit deeper into that in a second. But further on that note is something else you can do there, Michelle, is if you can do a live video on Facebook talking about some of these things, right? Like if you do say you do a 5-10 minute video on Facebook, you're going to be able to talk about things, answer certain questions that some people will find useful and be able to implement right now. Some of those people would never be customers anyway, so that's okay. You're going to be giving them free information. They can use it. It helps everybody out. It's a win-win all the way around. But some of those people will see what you're saying and they'll be like, oh, hey, this is great information. I didn't know this. I need to know more. Rather than sit here and try and pick pieces together for free all over the place, I'll just buy this and get it all in one shot, right? Because that's what we're trying to do here, is we're trying to show value. And you've got two different types of people, and somebody could be both of those people at various points in time. But somebody is either not a potential customer or they are a potential customer. So you're not losing anything by giving information away. If you're giving information away, the person who's not ever going to be a potential customer is not going to buy from you anyway. So no matter how much you give away, it doesn't affect anything. The person who's a potential customer, whether it's right now or later, they're going to fall into one of two categories. Either they're a potential customer right now, and by showing them value, by showing them that you know what you're talking about and you have the knowledge and the capability to help them achieve whatever their goal is, by showing them that information, you're proving that you're capable and making it more likely that they'll buy. If they're not yet a potential customer, by sharing that information, you're basically setting the stage. You're building that relationship early on before they're to the point where they're starting to make a buying decision. Because by the time they get ready to make a buying decision, they're already being chased by everybody else out there, all of your other competitors. So if you can reach them earlier on, you're going to have a lot greater advantage. Does that make sense?
Yes, it absolutely does. And thank you both so much. I really appreciate that insight.
My pleasure. Another thing we can talk about is pivoting a business. So we talked about how some industries have been decimated. The hotel industry, travel, things like that, restaurants. But if you can talk about how to pivot a business in some way that makes sense and tie that to what you do, you're going to see a lot of engagement, because that's something people care about right now. Great example of this is there's an organization that I belong to. Some of you guys here are part of that, where they are focused on face-to-face events, right? And it's a very select group of people, and they meet 4 times a year. Well, because of this situation, obviously they're not meeting. The meetings are over with, and that's for the foreseeable future. So what they've done is they've completely pivoted to doing all of this stuff virtual, right? They're doing this through Zoom meetings every single day now. So if you can find a way to talk about pivoting a business and connect that to what you do, then you're going to get people's attention, because right now people are trying to find ways to adapt their business to things. So I'll give you a couple of other examples of companies that are doing it right. There's a company that we're creating some content for right now. They do a lot of enrollment. So let's say you have a company that provides employee benefits, workplace healthcare insurance, and various other things like that you get as a typical employee benefits package. They actually come in as the middleman between the insurance company or the insurance broker and the HR department. And they basically handle that whole process to make it smooth, because if any of you have ever experienced it before, it could be a bit of a train wreck. So what they do is they come in and they handle it to make it all smooth. They sit down with them. Well, because of how things have gone, nobody's going face-to-face, sitting down, meeting with people right now. That's changed their business. So they've started producing a lot of content about doing things remotely, while they're talking about how, because they already have been doing remote for a lot of these for years, so it's already second nature to them. So by being out here, sharing content about, we do X, Y, and Z remotely, here's how we've done it, here's how we found it to be effective, or here's the tools we use, or the process we follow. You're now sharing information while still telling somebody what you do. And it's perceived in a different way. If you just get out there and like, hey, like, we do this, so if you don't want to catch the coronavirus, like, come do it this way, that would be a shitty way to do it. But if you're out here showing how you do a particular thing and how that might apply to them, and giving them information right there that they can use from that perspective, it's a great approach to it. It's going to create a lot more engagement, and you're just going to see a lot better results. Do we have anybody in real estate in here by any chance? No? Okay. Real estate is another industry that's getting decimated. So, what a real estate agent could do, and this is just an example that you can kind of tailor if you're in something similar, is, you could go live on your phone and walk around your house and start talking about various things that, you might need to look at, because eventually people are going to have to start getting out and having face-to-face interactions. If you can start showing people things in their house that they need to look at, that might affect the home resale value, that's the kind of thing that you're creating brand awareness. You're creating value, and at a time when nobody else is doing that. I know we've got a lot of restaurants that are being killed right now. Great content for an industry like that, or anybody in the entertainment industry. You could be on here talking about, things that you could be doing at home for entertainment, or, a post about, the top 10 movies in whatever genre, whatever it is. Get people talking, get people engaging. They're used to seeing your brand. They're engaging with you. The other side of that is when they're doing this, when they're engaging with you on a consistent basis, that's going to train Facebook's algorithm, or LinkedIn, or wherever you're using, Instagram. It's going to train that algorithm to show your content more frequently. The more engagement that you have, it's telling Facebook, hey, this person's audience likes what they have to say. Let's show it to them more often. And then on top of that, it also starts showing it to other people more often. So you start to tangentially reach out to their network as well.
Jeremy, I have a question.
Go ahead. Yes.
So one of the things that I'm seeing a ton of, and I'm getting them daily even to this point, like every vendor I've ever bought from in the last 30 years sending emails, with a subject line that says COVID-19 update, and what they're doing to protect us. And I'm like, it's so overwhelming that it's causing me to not want to send those emails to my clients. And when I do send an email, it's very infrequently, and I don't talk about COVID, because so the question is, am I the only one experiencing that, and am I feeling that way because I'm me, or
no?
is everybody...
Your feeling is 100% accurate. Frankly, everyone's sick of the fucking COVID emails like this. It's ridiculous. The reality is nobody cares what some random company is doing about COVID unless they're directly tied to it. If it's a healthcare company or, an insurance company, then commenting on, what you're doing about COVID maybe makes sense. Outside of that, there's no value. What happened was some people started doing it, and then everybody kind of jumped on the bandwagon. And now it's like this thing is like, oh, well, they all did it, so I have to do it. There's no real value in that unless you're interacting with the public in some way that will dramatically affect them as it pertains to this. So
would you say it's good or bad at this present moment to continue sending out a monthly or biweekly communication in the midst of all of this anyways?
Absolutely. Yes. Just don't do the here's what we're doing about the COVID situation. Have it be something valuable. You need to be sharing content that they can use right now. So in your situation, we talked about one of yours not too long ago. You had a lot of clients who thought that because of this virus, DOT drug testing had stopped, which was not the case. So that's the kind of content that would go out there. I mean, that's directly tied to COVID, but it's not, hey, here's what we're doing. We're washing our hands more often, whatever. You're sharing something that is directly correlated to what you do and to this situation, and it's useful for them.
So I would say the only thing, if I'm going to give out free rolls of toilet paper with every drug test that we sell, that would be something worth advertising. Sorry to make a joke, but
no, that's all good, man.
Thanks.
Yep. All right. So,
Jeremy.
Yes, Steve.
Yeah, just to add on to that, because I'm more on the agency marketing side of things.
Right.
Over the weekend, I sent out just a generic email to all of our clients, letting them know about the upcoming Facebook and Google Ads grants that they're going to be passing out to all the small businesses.
Right.
So I've been keeping an eye on things that my clients would be interested in, but may not necessarily know about. And then just telling them, this is what's coming. As we learn more, I will keep you up to date. If you want to talk now, I'm available. And just let it go at that, just so that they can get in. And I've wound up with like 4 meetings scheduled.
That's awesome.
On Sunday, because everybody's freaked out, and anything that's positive is a really good lead in to, if nothing else, at least calm them down and keep the relationship going.
Absolutely. And further on that is by making that contact point, you're making sure that they're more likely to stick around. You know, we talked about that earlier. If you're staying in touch with, or actually that was on the other webinar that we talked about that. If you're staying in contact with them, you're now a human versus some company on the other side of the screen. So that plays a big role in keeping people on board when things like this happen. So that's a great example, Steve. Thanks. One of the things I want to touch on here is consistency. So when it comes to social, a lot of people go out here and they'll make this flurry of posts, and then they go get tied up with something else, or they don't start to see the results immediately, and then they go away. And the problem is that you're doing two things. One, you're hurting yourself from an algorithmic standpoint, right? You're training Facebook that you're not going to be consistent, so they're generally not going to show your content. If you're out here consistently posting it, commenting on, you know, when somebody comments on your post, you reply back to them, things like that. You have this engagement going. When that happens, the algorithm starts to show your content more frequently, but it also builds your brand. All right, if you're out here and you post once a month or once every few months or something like that, it's showing people that your brand is not going to be very consistent. All right, and people want to deal with, especially at times like this, someone who is consistent, somebody who's reliable. They're going to show up and do what has to be done regardless of what's going on. So by consistently sharing value, not only are you training Facebook and the other networks algorithms to show your content more frequently, but you're also showing people, showing humans that you're going to be consistent and reliable. Something else we have to do right now is figure out where the customers are and what fits the situation. So there's a lot of things you can do to actually create opportunities here. We've all got our industry that we're focused on. This is a great opportunity right now to build a Facebook group. All right, the engagement rate, the organic reach of a group is dramatically higher. For pages, you're typically looking at organic reach of about 1% if you're lucky. If you've got great engagement, you might see organic reach of about 1%. If you have lower engagement, it's going to be a lower organic reach. But Facebook groups, they're really trying to push these hard. And right now is a perfect opportunity to build a group. So I did one a couple of, I guess, a week or two ago for basically the Tampa Bay business community. That's something all of you guys can do. You're all, you know, you've all got your local areas. You can build a group, start building up valuable information in there. And what you're doing is two things. One, you're helping your local economy, which obviously that's going to help everybody. You know, the whole rising tide raises all ships thing. Same applies here. But the other side of that is you're now front and center in front of all of these people. So find a way to build a group within your industry or within your local community and start getting other people involved. It's one of these situations where everybody wins. If you're able to help bring business to people, even if it's not a direct benefit to you, it will eventually work its way around to you. And even if it doesn't, it's the right thing to do, and it's not a tremendous amount of effort. So it's definitely worth doing. Another thing you can do is if your industry is affected in a particular way, find a way to help the industry as a whole. And that's going to create a lot of engagement. So for example, I know somebody was creating a list of restaurants in their city that were still delivering, and then putting that list up on social. That gets shared. That's the kind of thing people talk about, creates a lot of engagement, and it helps the local community and the industry as a whole. So look for opportunities like that. Is there anybody here that would like to kind of brainstorm a little bit about some opportunities, some ways we might be able to find a way for you to do something similar?
One note I would add on to what you just said about putting up a list, for instance, of local restaurants.
Yeah.
Tag them. Take the time to see if those restaurants have a page. Tag them. Let them know that you're listing them, and you may just find that they're reciprocating. They'll be sharing it.
Absolutely.
They may not want to share a list with their competition on it, but you'd be surprised how often they will.
Right. Well, and that's something that I see a lot when we're faced with some kind of crisis like this. Is normal competition kind of goes out the window. People really band together and help in ways that they wouldn't in ordinary times. So you might be surprised how much people might be willing to work together in a case like this.
Absolutely. One thing that I think we've all seen an awful lot of businesses that have done recently is offering to defer billing,
Hmm.
offering to, we're going to provide what you've been getting from us, for however much you're paying on a monthly basis is going to be no charge for the next month while we see wait for the seas to settle, or we're going to defer billing in case you're having cash flow issues.
Right.
Or even don't even make a commitment. Just say, if you're having cash flow issues, please reach out to us. We'll find a way to work with you to help you get over the hump.
Absolutely. And I think if you're in a position where you can do that, it's the right thing to do.
Everybody can't, sure, yeah.
Right. It's just it's that karma thing, right? It does work its way back to you one way or another. But if you can do it, do it. If you can't, don't feel bad about not being able to, because like everyone's in a different position. But if you can do it, it's going to have a tremendous impact on that relationship with that client.
Yep.
Another thing I want to touch on here is PR. All right. There's a tremendous amount, and Cheryl, if you want to chime in on this, I'm happy to turn it to you for a second. But frankly, folks, the media is sick of covering COVID. So if you can find a way to connect what you're doing to the situation in a positive way, a good example of this is an article I wrote not too long ago on a bunch of businesses that were giving back in some way. The digitalmarketer.com, for example, was one. Blitzmetrics gave, both of these companies gave away all of their courses for free up until a particular time frame. There was a couple of landlords, big commercial landlords, and they basically just said, hey, don't worry about paying your rent. We'll just sort it out later. Three Daughters Brewing, a local veteran-owned company here in the Tampa Bay area, they turned all of their brewing equipment over to basically, instead of creating alcohol, they were now creating hand sanitizer, and they donated that to a bunch of charity organizations. So these are examples of how you can do good things and get PR out of it, still tied to that, but not this doom and gloom that most people seem to be looking at when we talk about COVID. Cheryl, do you want to talk a little bit about how to pitch properly? Because most people are pretty terrible at that.
Sure. And in fact, there is a link, I noticed that you had it, of my tips for sharing with us. But in a nutshell, there are a golden rule or two that will get you so far ahead. The one, which seems so obvious, it's almost laughable, but matters more than anything else, is get out of your head the whole idea of how you want to be seen, and instead really get into the mind of the readers. And extension, whoever the reporter is, they answer to their readers and to their higher up. And so no amount of thing that you do that's impressive and notable matters to them, only that it applies to their audience or is interesting to their audience. And in fact, one of the articles that I know Jeremy has and will share is somebody, Steve Sims. I don't know if anyone here has heard about him. He has been hugely successful in the press and most often getting his own press just by thinking through what would be interesting to that reporter. And there are links and examples of everywhere he's been, including New York Times, including Fortune. A lot of things that people would die to get into, he did so by thinking through the lens of what's interesting to readers. So it's not what you think. It's a little bit of relationship building, and then when somebody is interested in knowing what are unusual paths to retirement, and he's got an opinion and he's got a perspective, that gets him in, not a profile on how glorious he considers himself to be. So yeah, I do have an ebook, a Forbes ebook, but Forbes no longer has their ebook program. I'm happy to share it in PDF form. I think Jeremy may have a copy. Jeremy, you are most welcome to share that copy if you'd like.
Okay, yeah, I'm gonna, after this is over with, I've got a bunch of resources I'll be sharing with you guys. So I'll drop a link to that in that email when it goes out.
Great. And we're offering, in the same vein that Jeremy mentioned, we're offering a lot of things that are good news. For example, imagine the end of a CNN episode that's been 50 minutes of gloom and doom, and then they'd like to hear about somebody who rose up in America and created something really successful. That's interesting. Or now that it's spring, what are the things you could do to make your roof last longer? That's a very literal one that we're getting on Fox and Friends, but we've delayed because of this situation in New York right now. But that would be interesting, uplifting, things that are of genuine help. So that bears in mind, it's not blind to the current circumstances, but does bear in mind what would be most useful to people right now, genuinely useful, that they consider useful, not that you have a vested interest in selling or sharing.
Awesome. Great advice as always, Cheryl. Thank you. All right. So another thing I want to touch on here is we want to think of the long-term play. So I know that everyone's in a little bit different situation. Some people are doing very well financially right now. Some people are not doing so well financially. But don't look at, and this, I mean, this applies in general, but especially right now, don't look at what can I get out of this right now. Like, don't go into a post thinking that, hey, I need to get 3 sales out of this or I'm dead. It's going to skew how you're writing the post or shooting the video or whatever that piece of content is. It's going to skew that when you're thinking all about yourself, instead of thinking about how can I create something that's going to help the customer or my audience. So look at it from a long-term play. Give as much value as you can before you try to get something out of it, whether it's closing a sale or bringing on a client, whatever the case is. Within this, there's a couple of things we can do to really maximize our results. So we talked earlier about what we call force multipliers. So we can leverage a couple of things here in this situation. One of them is email. So if you have something that you're giving away, maybe what you do is you give away a tiny nugget, and then you've got a one-page document that outlines that particular thing in greater detail. And it explains. So let's say, for example, we use the IT company as one example a while back. So maybe we do here's a 30-point checklist of security issues you need to be aware of when working from home. So maybe you list 3 of those in a post and write what they are, why they matter, how to address them. And then if you want this list of 30, go ahead and sign up over here and we'll email it to you. Well, you've now got that person's email list or that person's email address. That is gold because you can market to them in the future. And as long as you continue to add value, they're going to stay on your list. They're going to engage with your content. They're going to buy your products or services if it's applicable. So use this as an opportunity to build a list. I talked about some of the companies that were giving away all of their courses for free, and Audible was another. They were giving away books, or was it? It wasn't Audible. It was somebody else. Do you remember, Cheryl? No.
It was
okay.
Scribed.
Okay, there we go. Thank you. So they gave that away. Obviously, there's a benefit to people from that, but there's also a benefit to them because now they have all these email addresses. They can market to them. So while you're doing good, you're also benefiting yourself. So that's the kind of win-win scenarios we want to create here. So there's a great platform we use for that. It's nice and simple. It's not superly complex like you see some of the Infusionsoft's or things like that. Aweber is great for this. It's something really easy to set up. I'll include a link to that after this is wrapped up, along with some of the other resources we'll be talking about. But yeah, you can set it up, and it's an autoresponder. So you set it up, they can sign up, and then as soon as they sign up, it can send that information to them. So you're not having to go here and manually type in a bunch of addresses and send this out to them. You can basically turn this into something that's on autopilot marketing for you. Something else we want to look at is retargeting. For those of you who aren't from the digital marketing industry, retargeting is basically, if you ever gone to a particular website and then it seems like everywhere that you go after that, you're seeing that company's ads, that's retargeting. And there's ways to do it both through Google and through Facebook. Basically what it does is it sets a pixel on your computer. So your computer downloads that pixel when it goes to a particular page. And then based on that pixel, that company's ad campaign is showing you ads because they know that you visited that particular site. So we could put these 2 pieces together. Let's say you drop somebody on a particular landing page where they're getting a piece of information from you, where they're going to fill out their email address and come over here. Once they've hit that confirmation page after they've given you their email address, from that page, a pixel can be set, and now you can market to them on Facebook and on Google. So now we start tying these things together. We start to see this dramatic synergy of everything working well together, and you're reaching them through multiple channels. You're engaging organically on social media. You can run paid ads. You've got email. you've got all these different platforms and you're engaging with them on different through different channels. The other side of that is remarketing generally works out to be a lot cheaper than just cold advertising, right? So if you've got a remarketing campaign where you're advertising to somebody who's already visited your site, the cost per visitor or the cost per impression is going to be dramatically lower than if you set up some kind of targeting and said, hey, I want to advertise this particular post to everybody in Tampa, for example, or whatever targeting you're looking at. The costs are going to be lower on this. So now you're reaching people through multiple channels and your costs go down on top of that. This is another great opportunity to do joint ventures. So we've all got things that we're working on. Hopefully all of you guys have, if you don't already, have some kind of residual income, some kind of like a course or a product that they can buy and download that doesn't require you to do something, that they just buy it and download it and do whatever they need to do with it. Michelle's course is a perfect example of that. If you guys don't have something like that, right now is the perfect time to do that. But in that, you can start creating joint venture opportunities. So Michelle, I'm going to follow up with you after the call because I've got something I'm working on that we can probably do some cross promotion there. So this is an example of where these kind of things work well together. So let's say Michelle's building her list over here and I'm building my list over here. Now, if we go and send a list to each other's lists, right? I send a message out to my people promoting her course, and she sends out a message to her people promoting my course. Now, for just a little bit of time put into this, like let's say we have a 15-minute phone call, Michelle and I know each other already, so it's not going to require a ton of time. But let's say we have a 15-minute phone call, we decide that something like that might be a fit, and then it takes what, an hour at most to set up an email that we send out, and you could see dramatically larger sales that way. So there's a lot of JV opportunities out here where we can cross promote. And if we're looking at the right people, then we're going to see a lot of opportunities there. Adam, I know you and I have kind of shared each other's content from time to time. You and I are kind of another example of that. You know, when I run into somebody who I know needs financial advice, they need a CFO or something like that, I can obviously refer them to you, and vice versa. If you know somebody who needs marketing, you can do that. Well, a lot of times, the people who they need to market, they also need financial help, because if you're going to be growing, the strategies that you currently have may not fit. So find people where there's a good opportunity to reciprocate in both ways, where you both can help each other while helping the client. And you're going to find that in pretty much every industry. And that's not just on the courses or the membership sites or things like that, but it's also just in general, right? Like you've got your services or your products. Find people who are relevant to what you're doing, where you're serving the same kind of customers, the same kind of clients that they are, and find ways to build a relationship with them, start communicating with them, start helping them. And don't do this as a transactional approach. It's not like, hey, I'm going to do this for you. What are you going to do for me? Just go into it, adding value, helping them where you can. And it just kind of, it forms naturally. You know, I know Adam and I, you and I never talked about sharing each other's content. It just kind of started happening naturally, right? Because Adam's always writing this great stuff about all kinds of financial topics. And that's an area that I know a lot of businesses have problems with. I know that most people don't really understand finance, or especially when you get up to the more strategic side of it. And, you know, I just started sharing his content. He started sharing mine. And it just, I mean, it just kind of became this thing. So look for opportunities to do that throughout social media. And right now is the time to do that, because everybody's so active on social right now. So that's a wrap on that for now. Does anybody have any questions or anything they'd like to add?
I got a question for you.
Yes.
So we're talking about retargeting. I use ad rolls for my retargeting.
Okay.
I don't know if you ever used it before. Basically, I created an ad set, and it plays it throughout the internet, right? It goes off of website customers. But now I've gone to certain people's websites, and when I get off their website, now I see ads for everything else, you know, all their competitors.
Right.
How is that set up? So if somebody goes to my competitors, how is it when they go to Facebook, they see me?
I'm sorry, say that last part again.
Like, say, so when they go on the social media or Google or anything else, how is it that I could make them see me from going to my competitors' websites?
So do you have a Facebook pixel set up on your site?
Yes.
Okay. So if you run retargeting ads, basically you can make it to where once they visit your site and that pixel is downloaded and set on your machine, on their machine rather,
Right.
then they'll start to see, or actually, and it should be cross-platform anyway, so it should be tied to their Facebook account, not just their individual computer. But if that's in place, then you just need to set the ad up. Do you not have the ad set up? Is that what it sounds like?
No, so if they go to my website, they're gonna see frag out everywhere.
Okay.
Right. Everywhere they go, that's all set up. But if say they go to 9line or Grunt Style or any of these other t-shirt
Gotcha.
guys, how do they see frag out after that?
Okay. So what you've got there is Facebook gives you the ability to target fans of particular pages, but it's not across the board. You don't have the ability to do everything. Like there's some pages that it doesn't appear to be based on the size of the page. It's not like you have to hit like 5,000 followers or 50,000 or whatever. It's just, it seems to be pretty random. And maybe Steve has some input on that. But basically, you have the ability to target fans of certain pages, but you may not have that option for all pages. Does that answer your question?
Yeah. So those people are basically running ads through that social platform like Facebook, and they're using keywords like, frag out clothing company, like specific like that.
Yeah, you're specifically targeting that page, but it's set up in the targeting section of the ads. If you want, I can walk you through that a little bit later on today.
I think I know what you're talking about.
Okay.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome. Anybody else? All right. Let's see. Nope, that was it. All right. Well, that's a wrap for today then. If anybody has any questions, feel free to reach out to me directly. I'm happy to hop on a phone call with a few of you. And there's a couple of resources that we talked about here. I'll go ahead and put those together in an email. We'll send those out after the webinar. It'll probably be later on this evening, but you should expect to receive that sometime today. All right, everybody. Have an awesome day. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, Jeremy. Thanks everybody for popping in.
Thank you.